Hello, and welcome back to another episode at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the best hosts that money can buy, but which we do not have. You know him as Wil Masisak and Bradshaw to Ben, and Korey Karbowsky, Corey39. Well, unfortunately, Will, you and I predicted walking into a buzzsaw this past weekend, and that's exactly what we got. It wasn't pretty in any stretch of the mind. Honestly, I was shocked that we put up 13. Honestly, with the way that game started out, that game started out on the first two drives, and I almost texted our little group chat and said, "Okay, I don't have to watch anymore. Like not enough is going to change." But
If it hadn't been for those fumbles, you would have tuned out for sure.
that's true. Honestly, I when those fumbles happened, I said, okay, maybe Philadelphia's going to just have a bad enough game where Pittsburgh can stay in this thing for, all four quarters. But, we kind of saw that not happen. I'd say the biggest piece that I was disappointed in was our pass defense. Boy, did it look bad. I know Philadelphia does some things, offensively to open their players up. But, man, it just felt like we just had trouble covering their guys. AJ Brown had his way with us. I hate to say it, but Joey Porter Jr., he didn't get pushed around by any means, but, he definitely got that, I'm an all-star wide receiver type of thing on him. And then honestly, one thing I was actually pretty impressed with was our run defense. Our run defense was actually very good against, what very well could end up being a league MVP and Saquon Barkley. But I'm going to throw it to you guys. Will, what are kind of your thoughts from this past game?
The thing is, I think it was a game depending on whether you're wearing the rose-colored glasses or not, because I feel like it's a game that I think you're going to watch Hard Knocks this week, and if you haven't already, and I distinctly got the impression that they thought it was close. Like, in other words, they viewed that as being like we were just a couple of plays away from
Mm-hmm.
winning a game that we lost by 14, right? And the officials screwed us or whatever. Yeah, okay. The NFL, like the margin is pretty narrow. So yeah, if you get a couple of calls that go the wrong way and whatever, maybe it can swing the outcome. But I just felt like all that stuff really did was just keep them from losing by 10 points instead of 14. I think Philly probably could have scored easily on that last drive if they really wanted to. And I feel like the real consequences of the bad calls were maybe the Steelers might have got 4 points more instead of a field goal. But man, when that game was 14-3, I absolutely did not think that the Steelers were going to make my prediction of 13 points or that the Eagles were only going to get to my prediction of 23 points. I was like, I'm dead. I'm dead in the score game with my prediction because it just seemed like it was going to get even worse than that. Yeah, so the middle part of the game, turnovers and Philly kind of taking their foot off the gas a little bit. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, they pretty much stopped that quick passing game that they were killing the Steelers with early and were intent on running the ball and using clock and using possession to like wear the game down because they figured once they're at 14, they're probably not losing this game. But that, I think, it gave it the illusion that it was closer than it was by the time we got to the third quarter.
Yeah, Corey, kind of what are your thoughts from this past game, man?
I really the thing that really got me, the game was whatever. Eagles are a good team. We're good, but I didn't think we were Eagles good. Now, I do think it's a little concerning that a team that had been very publicly having issues with its passing game did what they did to us, but maybe that was just something they needed internally to kind of get going. We'll see kind of next week and the next week after that if, it was just us or if it was something they figured out. I really was not a fan of, I'm not sure if you guys saw it. Arthur Smith got asked about the Darnell Washington block, and he was like, "Oh, it's unacceptable." It's like you want to run the ball, you want to have nasty run blockers. You got a tight end who takes the DB to the damn stands. You should be celebrating it, even if, let's say, you're unhappy with the penalty. You go to the press and you say, "Hey, hell of a block by Darnell. I love the energy." Something like that. It's like maybe let's do what we can to avoid a penalty, but no, he went over and crapped all over him. And it's like, and we're all big Pickens fans, but with all the crap that Pickens has done for especially early in the season that he kind of got away with, you you want to go and get good all over Darnell for, doing his job better than, about as good as you could on any given play.
Yeah.
That part, I just didn't like how that feels like the culture's off. Like that's something that would have been celebrated 10 years ago. And if you want to be a run the football team, you want to, hard nosed, gritty, stop the run the ball, play defense. That's the kind of stuff you got to encourage, not go on and crap all over your tight ends. That was my big takeaway. It's the result itself is not too surprising to me. They're a good team. Kind of shows where we are in the whole, grand scheme of things, I think. But I just did not like that comment. That's really stuck with me.
Well, and then I'm glad you brought that up because we were definitely going to go there next with all the publicity this play has, caused. It's absolutely bullshit. Excuse my French, people. That Philadelphia was not flagged at all because they were clearly punches thrown. I don't know what refs were out there not seeing shit, but goddamn, like, what do you mean there were no punches thrown?
I mean, it was reviewed from New York. Here's the thing: the official on the ground, I noticed, arrived after the first Philadelphia player threw a punch, and when the official arrived and was looking at them, that's when he pushed his hands away, and that's what they told Mark Kohlman. Like he didn't throw a punch; he just pushed his hands away. Well, that happened after the first punch. But I'm not sure that the video feed that those guys saw the punches. I'm talking about New York because it wasn't until later until I saw that fan from the stands that was right in front of the action that saw everything that happened. Then it clear as day, of course, you can see two different, Quinton Mitchell and then the guy that got blocked, both throwing punches. So yeah, like that would have been sort of no one would have batted an eye if it had been called on both sides, right? So in a way, it was a really kind of like quote gutsy call to be that you risked being really wrong about, which they were, to make that call. But I mean, like I said, I felt like that cost the Steelers maybe 4 points in a 14-point game. So like I'm not sweating it. I think the bigger issue, if you want to talk about bad calls, you can go back to officiating if you want because there's plenty of other things to talk about. The bad call in this game was punting, on 4th and 7 from the opponent's side of the field, down 14 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, with like 11
zero
minutes.
sense. Yeah. Even notwithstanding the outcome, which was they didn't get the ball again, even so, when you're down 14 in the fourth quarter, you want to maximize your chances of keeping possession or getting possessions. And so you go for it there because even if you don't make it, Philly has fewer yards to go to the end zone. They probably can't run out the clock. You might get it back again. So at any rate, you're just trying to maximize the number of times you have the ball in your hands, and to give it up on their side of the field, what did you gain? You gained 20 yards of field position or something. It was just like the Cleveland playoff game where he did it not once but twice in that game. Down 28-0, punted from Cleveland's 38-yard line. Like, give me a fucking break. And then later, on 4th and 1, decided to punt down, whatever 17 or something in the fourth quarter. So this is something that will continue to irk me, and I feel like that has a much bigger impact on the team and chances of winning than the officiating call.
Yeah, that's fair. Korey brought up a good point, kind of in the macro of it. We are who we are. We know where we are. It's going to be a very interesting stretch of games here to figure out, how we finish out the year with obviously us playing Baltimore on Saturday, the Chiefs on Christmas Day, and then finishing with Cincinnati again. But the one thing that definitely stood out to me, and we've kind of said all along, or more of a hypothetical, I guess. Boy, it would have been really interesting if we would have been able to pull off one of those trades for a veteran wide receiver, not named Mike Williams, because they
don't even use Mike Williams. How would it have made a difference? I mean,
but if we would have got him. But if we would have got said ex-veteran receiver in training camp, we wouldn't have had this, oh, well, he came to us middle of the year and there's only so much we can ask him to do bullshit, which is a complete joke. That we're acting like Mike Williams can't go out there and fucking do what Van Jefferson does. It's an absolute joke.
When you don't have George Pickens, you can throw a 50-50 ball to him. It's like at least you got to play with him versus throwing that to Van Jefferson, who's more like a 20-80 ball guy. Anyway, listen, I challenge you and Corey to come up with positives for this game because I could rant all day, but it's bad. It's like bad podcast, I think, to just rant the whole time.
Well,
I do think there were positives, but I'm going to leave them to you guys for a moment.
yeah, so the first positive that came from this game, well, maybe not exactly from this game, but even with a shitty loss, your Pittsburgh Steelers did secure a playoff spot. with the Colts losing and the Dolphins losing, that officially locked Pittsburgh into a playoff spot. Now, obviously, it's going a lot depends on Saturday. Whoever wins on Saturday is probably going to win the AFC North. Or at least we will have split the tiebreaker. If we beat Cincinnati again, I think that would push us over. No, Baltimore's beat them too. So we're going to come down to some other tiebreakers if we somehow lose Saturday, but finish with the same record. So I'm not a big tiebreaker guy or whatever. I don't really know those off the top of my head, but that is the one silver lining, despite playing like crap for most part, we did lock up a playoff spot. So I don't know, Corey, any other positives?
I thought Alex Hyde played a really nice game. I think this was his first game off injury, or his first real one, if it wasn't. But
number 2, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think he had stats, but I mean, he was just kind of you saw him flashing all the time. But offensively, I'm sure we might touch on this, but like we need a better running back. That's one thing. Najee, not for what we want to be, he's just not going to work. And that doesn't necessarily mean we should take one in round 1, which is what some of us have been. But that's I'm sorry, this is supposed to be positive. Alex Heitzman.
Well, and then I mentioned it earlier, but our defensive line actually did a really good job controlling the running lanes for the most part. However, like you said, I know we were trying to stay positive here.
It's hard. It's really hard.
This was easily our worst tackling game of the year. The Steelers missed 20 tackles in this game. That's the most they've missed in a game in like 3 years.
But but that stat doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens for 2 reasons. One was the Steelers seemed, both on special teams and on defense especially, to really have the mindset that they were going to hit and be physical. And when you have the mindset to hit, you don't necessarily have the mindset to be safe tacklers, right? It's like you're trying to send a message by hitting. There's that. Secondly, you're talking about a team, Philadelphia, that's way more athletic than the Steelers are. So the Steelers are generally on the slow side and generally not as athletic as some of the more high functioning passing or offensive teams in the league. So I feel like Kenneth Gainwell in space is a mismatch against anybody we're going to send out there to try to tackle him, right? So it's like I don't really blame somebody for missing a tackle on Gainwell in space. He's a really good player for that kind of situation. So I feel like, yes, they could have tackled better, but the reason they tackled better was I think primarily because of the opponent and the style of game that the Steelers came in wanting to play. So I appreciate the fact they wanted to make it a physical. They wanted to make it a rock fight against Philly, and Philly was like, no, not at the beginning anyway, right? Not until, strangely enough, until Saquon Barkley got hurt, and then they were like, all right, we're going to just pound it with you in the trenches for a while and let our offensive and defensive fronts stalemate you while the clock runs out. But yeah, I appreciate that the Steelers tried the rock fight thing with Philly, but Philly was like, no way.
Yeah. So, well, I don't really think there's a whole lot more to dwell on from this past game. Just kind of is what it is. It's just,
just one last thing. That stopping, they basically they did, slow down / stop Saquon Barkley, partially because they hurt him. He got hurt on a tackle by Minka. That falls in that category of like trying to be physical with him. So yeah, they did that. That's great. And they forced a fumble on defense and what have you. But I do think that the selling out, like you can hear once again, I don't know if both of you now have seen Hard Knocks this week, but Mike Tomlin preaching before the game started and even during the game that they're hell bent on not letting Philadelphia running back beat them. They didn't let that running back beat them, but if you do it at the cost of giving up wide open looks on pass plays that like the quarterback doesn't even have it for 2 seconds and he's letting it go to somebody running free, on defense, that's a bad trade-off. I'd much rather have the run game beat me down over the course of the game for 3 or 4 yards at a crack than try to really shut it down completely and give up all that passing yards. Because unlike the Steelers, other teams are like, oh, we can get 5 to 7 yards on pass plays instead of 3 or 4 yards on run plays. Like, why do we need to worry about how much we run it? Just take whatever they give you.
Yeah, well, one more thing and kind of a question for the both of you. I know Minka had like one really good tackle, but boy, there were a few times in coverage where I was thinking, what the fuck are you doing tonight? That like on that touchdown to AJ Brown, like he came so far down, and I wasn't exactly sure why. Because when they lined up, I said, okay, Porter can take the outside, Minka can cover the inside, and he came so far down, and we have two other defensive backs that are just sitting there, heels on the line, like just waiting for something to happen. And it's just like, what the hell are we doing? And then sure enough, it was an easy, wide open AJ Brown pass, right over the middle. And I know, Minka's been pretty good for us for the most part, but boy, doesn't it just feel like he's just not the player he used to be? Korey, I'll let you start off. You're nodding with me. You're at least agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, we can debate it, but he doesn't look the same. I don't. The splash plays aren't really there this year, and that's something where even if teams avoid you, you're gonna have some splashes, and I feel like this year it's just been a lot more like what are you doing than seeing things that are necessarily positive. Now, there's a lot of film, there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure they're asked to do where it's probably not as bad as it looks all the time, but it hasn't been the same as previous years. I think it's safe to say that much, even with giving him the benefit of the doubt.
I don't think they're putting him in a very good position, honestly, to make plays. We
Okay.
seem to have really leaned into we're not going to give up any big plays, but we want to play single high. And to play single high and not give up any big plays, your single high safety's got to be basically out of the play. He is the last line of defense on a big play, but he is in a sort of no man's land, man. It makes it very hard to make plays downhill. It makes it very hard if you do come downhill on in a robber set or whatever. You're really exposing your cornerback play. And yes, Joey Porter maybe having a little bit of like the sophomore slump. And Dante Jackson's been okay, but they're not exactly like gluing, receivers. What they're really doing is they're buying enough time for their pass rush to get home. That's how the Steelers have. That's what their pass defense is, right? It's like just enough coverage and go get the quarterback, which works if you're playing against a team that doesn't have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson at tackle. Like it might work against most other teams, but if you got a quarterback that's getting the ball out and you got offensive weapons to throw it to, and you above all have offensive tackles that can at least stalemate your guys, that makes it very tough for your deep center field safety to make plays. Honestly, when he's normally in that situation, he's making plays because quarterbacks have to get rid of the ball quickly and they make mistakes where it goes. They don't see him, hanging over from the center. But I feel like there's just so many. Our middle of the field coverage. Let me see if I ever said this on the show, guys. From the time before that you guys were even on the show, and I've been talking about this at least since 2017. I mean, from the time that we lost our middle linebacker who was finally getting to be good at middle of the field coverage. It's like the Steelers really haven't had a lockdown center of the field coverage the way that teams with better coverage linebackers have. They don't really want to have the coverage linebackers, and I'm going to give it to Korey because I'm just very like it's shot after shot, quick shots, and the seam kill the Steelers.
I'm sure I have had my fair share of draft misses, but Diane Henley has been balling out for the Chargers and was
Yes.
available. And they chose not to address that. And that's one thing where we've known it's an issue for forever. And Spillane is doing what Queen has been doing, and Spillane was not the worst in coverage. Spillane was not one of the guys where we'd say, but I'm sorry, Diane Henley. Seeing how well he's played this year,
Yeah,
kills you something.
he's been rocking it. Yeah, I mean, was also a very big fan of his. even before he started playing with Cam Ward. But, Corey, don't forget, he plays west of the Mississippi. So right away, the Steelers are at a disadvantage. They don't really know anything about that cat. I'm kidding because they have Mark
Are you
Bruner's.
kidding? Are you?
Well, Mark Bruner's the scout up there. They do
Yeah.
have eyes in that neighborhood, but yeah, it just feels like they're not convinced that those cats are like going to come and play on the East Coast. I think it's really a thing, especially to be physical in the cold weather and different look. And I just feel like that's not their priorities when getting linebackers is, to get guys that are going to be physical coming downhill. And if they can't cover anybody up the field, well, we'll deal with that a different way. So this continues to be an issue, and especially if you're going to play, single high, basically cover three all the time, you are just leaving seams sometimes wide open. And it's like they're counting on TJ Watt to get home in 2 seconds. And if you can't get home in 2 seconds, then the quarterback has an easy throw. As you saw in the beginning part of the game, they can hit the tight end or slot receiver up the seams like it's like a Madden on easy.
Well, yeah, so it is what it is. I don't know. But I wanted to kind of transition and kind of looking ahead to the Ravens here. Quick run through the injury report because there's actually some guys that are on there, some for actually legitimate reasons. That I'll tell you what, that was the only other silver lining from the game is that the TJ Watt injury was not what they had feared. A lot of reports initially right away were like, oh God, could be out 6 to 8 weeks. Will, I know you mentioned in our chat, I think you said a Jones fracture or
Yeah,
something.
one of the medical people that saw it was like fears that it could be a Jones fracture because it was a spot. But yeah.
But so we got lucky in that regard. Sorry, excuse me. That's that wintertime cold
Too
catching up.
much drinking, George.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
This podcast is brought to you by New Glarus Spotted Cow. Thank you to the cheeseheads up north that make it. But so yeah, let's get on to the injury report. Justin Fields came in for one play and left with an ab injury. He did not practice all week. He is out. So that means I think it's Kyle Allen is our backup. So he will be elevated number 2. I'll tell you what. One more thing going back to the game. It would have been interesting to see how many plays Fields would have been on the field. It kind of seemed like they had a little bit of a package for him in some of those circumstances. Excuse me. Try to say that 5 times fast. But would have been interesting just to see if he would have been able to play a little bit more. Another person that's out, George Pickens, while he was hopeful this week with the hamstring, it feels like they're kind of playing precautionary here and just he didn't practice, but you've seen videos of him doing like individual stuff, the ladder outside. So there was kind of some hope that he might practice towards the end of the week. Did not happen with the Saturday game. It was just one last day to practice. I think they're just playing it safe there. Deshaun Elliott is still doubtful with a hamstring, even though he did get in a light practice on Thursday. So good news there. We'll see. Dante Jackson, another light practice. He is questionable, so hopefully he plays. Definitely could always use just extra help. And certainly feels like Larry Ogunjobi is back on track this week. Got 2 light practices in and then a full practice on Thursday. So feels like he'll be back as well.
Championship. Ogunjobi's coming back.
Yeah. Asshole. Yeah, I hate that kid. No offense, Larry. I'm sure you're a stand-up guy in real life. But for the Ravens, one interesting, well, there's a few interesting notes. Nelson Aguilar has not practiced all week with a concussion, so it doesn't look like he's going to be able to clear the concussion protocol in time for Saturday. Rashad Bateman started out the week not practicing, logged a light practice, but then did not practice on Thursday with a foot injury. And he's kind of come on for them this year, so it'll that's a big deal if he ends up not being able to play. Their right guard, Daniel Falalale. If you don't know him, just look him up. He's huge. Light practices all week, but still with the questionable tag. So I'm going to guess that he's going to play. I'll leave him till last.
Just go out there and be big, kid. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Go out there and just push people around. Thank you.
Just be huge. Yeah.
Odafe Owe, light practice all week with an ankle. He's questionable. And then, there's one cat that didn't practice all week, and they're calling it a personal issue, but it's more of a team discipline issue at this point. Your favorite former ex-Steeler wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, has not practiced all week. I'm still not really sure what's going on there. I know, like, he refused to go in or whatever, but it's like, good. Like, how long can you penalize a guy? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, he'll be cut on Monday. Just they're waiting till after the Steelers game, I'm sure.
Yeah,
because the Steelers need wide receivers, and he could probably help them. So,
well, not to mention, he'd be signing for nothing at this point in the year too. So
yeah, exactly.
It's too bad.
Signing for my annual salary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Bateman being out would be a huge thing. I'll start because Corey's going to talk about matchups. I'm going to talk about more global picture.
Yeah,
right?
You start first. Yeah.
If how can the Steelers win this game? Okay, I think primarily they can win this game by treating it a little bit way that the Bill Cowher treated the playoffs in 2005. It was like, okay, they think we're going to do this and this and this and this, and then we're going to come out and show them something they're not expecting at all in this game and give us a chance to get the upper hand in this matchup. That's A. B, Bateman not being able to play definitely would hurt them. And, it's like on defense, I think it's like they really, what Baltimore seemed to be unwilling to do was to let Lamar Jackson run out of the pocket, like to scramble. Whether it's Jackson saying, I want to prove that I can pass, or this team saying, no, we want to save you. Keeping Lamar Jackson from running out of the pocket, whether it's his choice or not, enhances their chances of winning by like 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things. I'm like, attack with something different on offense. Maybe get lucky on the injury balance between the two teams, and try to keep Lamar Jackson from running out of the pocket. That would be like the one scenario I can see. If you drag Baltimore into a rock fight, but yet don't let Lamar Jackson be the MVP, chapeau, good for you. I don't think any of that's going to happen, but I think that would be like a path. But I'll go on. I'll give Corey a shot, and then I'll talk about why they're not going to win this game after that.
Yeah, well, real quick before Corey gets in, I know the best way to beat the Ravens, toss it to Najee. I'm joking. Corey, I'll let you actually chime in with something that actually contributes to the podcast. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm flipping it. I'm saying whatever voodoo they've been doing for the past 4 years, just keep doing that. Don't change anything. It beats the Ravens in the regular season. Keep that going. I think, matchup wise, I think Bailey being out would actually be pretty big. He's turned into a pretty good player for him.
Yep.
That's someone that's kind of developed. They've really developed him. That was someone who pre-draft was like, super raw. They just have a way of getting those guys ready to play. But I don't know. We just have their number for some mental reason that they just don't play well against us. It's going to be physical. It's going to be low scoring. That's how these games end up. But I think that I don't know. Matchups wise, I think those injuries like Bateman and Faeli being out would really help. But I'm going to predict a win whenever we get to that part of it. So
sure.
That's
okay. Well, let me tell you something. Last year's game, the first one, the one in Pittsburgh, where the Ravens dropped like 15 passes. If they do what they normally do, which is catch the football, because I think most of the guys they threw to are actually guys that catch the football regularly. I think that's what we're going to see this week. I think Baltimore's like, what we did earlier this year was stupid. What we did last year was working. We just didn't execute it. They actually did have the game plan. More importantly, here's the problem with your voodoo situation is you're not going to have TJ Watt at 100%. Even if he miraculously plays, which I'm doubting at this point, but even if he miraculously plays, if he's not 100%, that was a huge thing, a huge part of why talking about Lamar Jackson not being able to escape out of the pocket was you're always in danger the moment that you step up in the pocket and think about going of TJ Watt catching you or stripping the ball from you. So, I feel like it really hurts as well as the Steelers' backups have played at edge, none of them are PJ Watt. That's a really big issue. But here's something important. Baltimore has two of the top four wide receivers in the NFL at separation against man coverage, right? So you can't play man coverage because first of all, those guys will beat you. Secondly, Lamar Jackson given a chance to see everybody covered in man coverage is going to take off and kill you. So I think the Steelers are going to be forced to sit back in zone, and that doesn't seem like a good formula for winning in the NFL against any opponent.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly fair, and I don't know if I mentioned it or whatever, but TJ Watt's not even on the injury report anymore. So you're probably right. He probably won't be at 100%. He will play, but who knows?
The voodoo's already working. It's already working. That's what it is.
Right on, man.
But
glad somebody could feel optimistic. Like I said this last week. I think the Steelers are a pretty good team, but they're like 11th to 15th in the NFL, kind of a good team, not a top 3 to 5 team. And I think this stretch of games, you're going to see that proven out. It doesn't mean they're bad, but like I don't really. The only thing about this matchup that is in the Steelers' favor is that they've been successful, over the last run. They're like on a run where they've won 8 of 9 against Baltimore. That is the only positive in this scenario. I can't think.
I'm 100% with you. It's if I'm picking this game, closing no AFC North rivalry. No, I'm looking at the two teams. I'm picking the Ravens majority of the time, but I said it. I predicted the Steelers to win last time. It's like they have a way, and until I'm proved that the Ravens have figured something out, we own them for the moment. So
I don't know, Jeremy. You're in the finance game, right?
Yeah.
What do they say? Past performance doesn't predict future performance. Right?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've read that. Studying to get licensed or whatever. Remember, there is no guarantee that past results will be the indicator of future success. I've read that so many times. So
just remember that on Saturday about 4:30.
Yeah, right. So I definitely hear you guys. I do. I don't know, which way I'm leaning right now.
You're trying to let us convince you. I'm the devil on your shoulder.
It's more just without George Pickens, I have no real confidence in the offense, But without George Pickens to open us up down the field, it's like why wouldn't you play 9 in the box?
They got players. They got targets. I mean, people that they could target that they don't even use on offense. And more importantly, if you watched, they made a lot of talk on the broadcast about Tom Brady was talking about how the Philly was basically having showing a too high look, but really it was like the one safety dropped lower in the middle and just went to whichever side was the heavy formation, and they left like a double coverage with the safety in a corner on one side, and then that second safety Blankenship just took off to the other side of the field. Do you know why he took off to the other side of the field? Because the routes are all to the sidelines. It's like you make it so easy on the defense when you're just going to run. What are you going to throw it into 5 guys against 2 or 3 receivers? Like it's not happening. Mm-hmm. So if you insist on not running plays across, mesh and stuff across the middle of the field that's like deeper than 2 yards downfield, and you insist on not really giving guys opportunities to do what George Pickens did for you to replicate. Like you have Mike Williams, who's like, George Pickens light. Just throw him the ball, throw it up to him a couple times if that's the goal. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man. Like I feel like you got a situation where you can see over the course of a season some of the things that they did. They brought in, that they came in with a new offensive coordinator and the personnel that they have. They have been successful to a degree with that, and particularly, put up a good record against most of the teams they faced. That played a good game. They're solid. They're not out of it completely. They're going to make the playoffs. Kudos. But I can't look at this team and think that they really manage the pieces well, or that more importantly, their strategy on offense makes a whit of sense.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean,
I want it to make sense to me.
Yeah, we've been beating our heads over this question for like the last 3 or 4 years, man. So it's not like we're gonna just get her as something new overnight, you know.
Maybe we will. I mean, that was the thing about 2005.
Yeah.
Like, I know Korey was like 8 years old, but
Oh, 8.
not even. What are you? 3? Yeah, okay.
Three. Oh boy.
But
Okay.
that game against Indianapolis, where they just came out and started throwing the ball downfield at the end, and like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Like, I remember how that felt. That I've never been more excited as a Steelers fan because I just thought, wow, like somebody had like a come to Jesus moment and they came up with a plan that not only surprised me, but it surprised the opponent and you could see the team totally like rallying behind it. Like they were jacked to come
Mhm.
out and let take the chains off the offense in the postseason. So yeah, it's much of a joke that we make about it, like we're never going to get that or whatever. It's not too late. It could happen, This I don't know if this team's a Super Bowl winner, but yeah, if they unleashed it a little bit and like at least had a mentality of trying to attack on offense, I think they could have a puncher's chance against everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, we're joking about how, Deontay Johnson's going to get cut on Monday or whatever, so he can't give Pittsburgh, everything we would want from him or whatever. Even if we were to sign Deontay Johnson, would we even use him? I mean, at this point,
Hard to get on a moving train.
yeah.
We
Well,
didn't use him here.
yeah. I mean, a lot of that was the dumbass quarterback behind center too, but but I hear
Fun
you.
times.
I hear you.
Fun times. That'd be nice to have somebody who could beat man coverage on like a route runner, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right. What? But anyway, believe it or not, there are other games this week, but there's also other games at a different level of football. That's right. The first round of the college football playoff is here. Very fun times in the expanded 12-team format, especially since my Hoosiers are kicking this thing off against Notre Dame on Friday night. So be sure to tune in at 8 p.m. if you want to see. Well, you won't see me, but I'll be up and down frantically moving around, just like I do with the Steelers sometimes. But that is the first game of the week. We're going to pick some college games this week, too. So I brought that up here because I did not have that down. But let's take a look here. Well, I thought I had
Jeremy, do you have neighbors? Are they
yes.
kind of within earshot?
No. So
Well,
the
actually,
other good,
they're also in Indiana, so it's like it doesn't really matter because
right?
everybody will be watching. But yeah, I was gonna just proactively call 911 uh, just in case it's out of
This
hand at
is
your house.
weird for some reason. The IU game is not showing up. Oh, there it is. There it is. So, no, it's weird though. They don't have any lines
What
here.
is this team, Indiana? Did they play college football?
Hey now, watch it. Watch it.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm bringing it up on MGM.
The
For some
fight
reason, ESPN didn't have the lines.
You
Uh,
know, you know, it's like you probably just have to look for Notre Dame because people don't even know Indiana's playing in this game.
all right. Cut it out. Cut it out. I'll kick you all both off here and just finish this thing. But yep, the Hoosiers are traveling up to that they are the 10th seed, traveling up to Notre Dame, the 7th seed. So they'll be hosting a game on their college campus, which is an interesting part of this, first expanded 12-team playoff. The seeds 5 through 8 get to host a game on their home campus. So the Fighting Irish are favored by 7. Will, I'll let you start out.
I mean, okay, Notre Dame has a couple of good wins. I'm not really convinced that they're such a good team. Um, I would really love to. I'm rooting with my heart here. I would like to see Indiana move on in the playoff, even though I'm not convinced that Indiana was like, the best choice of the leftovers. But it's like, hey, they're in there now, and they have a chance to like Notre Dame sort of got, I think, gifted a 5 seed. I don't really get that. That's the part that bothers me. It's like the seeding for Notre Dame to be hosting this game. I feel like these two teams are on pretty equal footing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take the Indiana Hoosiers because I just feel like this is one of those once in a lifetime. This is like Hoosiers. So
Yeah.
for at least one week, Indiana football is going to best Notre Dame. It's going to be the biggest thing that ever happened in Indiana.
Yeah, I want Coach Signay to go out there and do the whole measurement thing. Yeah, the field's this wide, the field's this long. The goalpost is still, it's like, hey, same, we play everywhere. So
Brilliant pull, Jeremy.
gotcha. So you're taking the Hoosiers to win and cover, or
I'm going to win and cover, yes.
all right, Korey?
Yeah, Signetti pulled this dreadful, miserable, awful fan base and school out of the mud.
Watch it, buddy. Watch it.
It was a desperate situation there. Absolutely.
It was. I'll give you that.
Just joking around.
You couldn't even get Larry Bird to go to school there. Come on, man.
He left on his own accord.
For Indiana or for Notre Dame, they kind of are supposed to be, built on their defense, and I'm not sure it is as good as it needs to be to kind of win this game. Just because I very little belief in their offense. They actually started putting up points towards the end of the year, but I don't know. It's just not very convincing. It would just be more fun if Indiana won. I just don't really want to pick Notre Dame, and so I'm gonna go with it.
I think we're all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder which way I'm leaning. Yeah. No.
Hey, can we make this Riley Leonard, second round pick thing stop, please?
For the love of God, yeah.
I just don't. I mean, I hope if nothing else happens in this game, that the Indiana quarterback shows that he's an NFL prospect, and the Notre Dame prospect shows that he should be coaching somewhere next year. Because
watch your mouth about future Steelers quarterback Riley Leonard. That's
oh my God.
Oh, not impossible, man.
Oof.
Not impossible.
Better be as an undrafted free agent then. I won't care if it's an undrafted free agent. But.
What I love about my favorite Riley Leonard story is that when they lost earlier this year to Northern Illinois, he asked a police officer for a ride home because he was too embarrassed to walk out of the stadium.
Damn, that's hilarious. I didn't know.
Ooh, that's ugly. Yeah. Anyway, let's go Hoosiers for the week.
Yeah, but so I'm taking the Hoosiers. Obviously, I'm rooting for my team.
Give us a score, Jeremy. Give us a score.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be like 34-24 IU. I think they're gonna win and cover. Well, what I think is gonna end up doing Notre Dame in is when they are forced to pass the ball. That's when the game is gonna look out of hand. You guys talked about it. Leonard's more of a running quarterback, that can distribute the ball okay. But when the bullets start flying and he has to actually drop back and pass, that's when the issues come. I've been reading it all week too. It's like as long as Notre Dame's in the game, they can lean on the run, they can do the quarterback run, stuff like that. The key matchup for IU is left guard Tyler Stevens, who had to step in for our starter, Drew Evans, this year. He has not played that well against Michigan and Ohio State. Just what they showed from a blitz perspective, and then just from the man in front of you type of deal, just much better than what we've been playing all year. He really struggled, but supposedly they've been working big time on crowd noise, blitz pickup, all that. I think the Hoosiers do enough of that because Notre Dame has a solid defense. Don't get me wrong, but I will say this: their reliance on playing man is going to hurt them in this game because we have the guys that can put those corners in compromising positions, which they have not played this year, like very seldomly. Like you saw them struggle against USC. Those guys could separate, make plays. I don't want to go on forever. There's some other games here.
No, just quickly, I love Xavier Watts. I think he's a guy that can make a difference if you work carelessly in the middle of the field. But they're I'm sorry, who's their I can't remember right now. Their cornerback is supposed to
Curtis
be
Rourke. Curtis Rourke.
No. Cornerback for Notre Dame.
They have a freshman whose name I'm forgetting, and then the other guy is Christian Gray.
Oh,
pretty good.
It doesn't Ryan Clark's kid play like some nickel?
He plays some nickel.
Yeah. No, I thought they had a guy that was like a.
So Ben Morrison is out for the year.
Oh, that's what it is. So Ben Morrison
he's out for the year, but they've had a freshman play pretty well.
Ben Morrison to me is like a guy that was a little bit overhyped. That's what I was trying to get to.
Gotcha.
But I think their Notre Dame's defensive line. That's scary that you already are talking about an issue with the left guard because I do feel like their interior line is the strength of their defense really right now. Like they got that safety that'll make you pay in the back end, and
Mhm.
Howard Cross gets the headlines. Riley Mills blows up every game he's in. So I will say from Notre Dame's standpoint that they, that's a matchup they can try to look to exploit because as you said, counting on their offense to come from behind is not the solution for them.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Will. This Jeremy guy seems to know a lot about IU football.
He really does.
It's almost like he used to be in the building at one point.
They Dante Johnston you, didn't they? They for sure.
No, no.
I'm just
Not like that. It wasn't because of that. But and then flip it over to Saturday. We've got 3 more games. You got SMU traveling to Penn State. I think this could be a fun one. Penn State's favored to win by 8.5. Korey, I'll let you start off on this one.
I'd really like to pick SMU just because Penn State cannot win big games, but I'm a little worried that the talent disparity is just going to be too wide. Penn State is uber talented, and that is going to carry you to a certain distance. I think they're not to get any predictions in the next round either because SMU could clip them, but Boise State is probably the team they were hoping to see in the second round. And Penn State has athletes. That's the one thing. They have some of the most freakish athletes every single year that you will find in college football. And those are the kind of guys where if it's a program that's not a blue blood, if you look at who Penn State loses to, it's Ohio State and Michigan. They're not losing to these bum teams every year. They just can't get past over that hill. So I'm going Penn State. It'd be nice if SMU won. It's kind of who I'm pulling for, but I think the talent gap's gonna show itself.
Yeah, go ahead, Bo.
I mean, here's the thing. Bowling Green almost got Penn State. You know what I mean? So it's not like they can't be had. Like the thing about Bowling Green that almost got like this is really it's a damn shame that SMU's stud tight end is done for the season because I feel like so what is his name? Maryland, RJ Maryland.
Yeah.
I feel like SMU with RJ Maryland would have actually a really good shot in this game. Without that, their quarterback's been terrific all year, but it's like, against the more challenging opponents, more athletic defenses, it's been hard for him to win with his legs the way that he's been winning otherwise. So I don't think it's the ideal matchup. I too would like to pick SMU, but I feel like Penn State's got a little bit too much going on. And it's like the Tyler Warren show. It's amazing. I think teams are so worried about Nick Singleton beating them in the center of the field that you just leave Tyler Warren run free on up the seam and up the sideline, which is like, it's going to him 50% of the time, but teams don't seem to be able to play an honest defense and still cover the tight end. So, I mean, Tyler Warren, has talent and it will be a very high draft pick and whatever, but he's not as good as he's made out to be. It's just like it feels like that, they put defenses in a bad situation of having to decide what to do and they can't cover it all.
Yeah, I mean, I come down to who's going to win in the trenches, and that just leads Penn State all the way. I mean, they've got Abdul Carter, who's going to be probably a top 5 pick. He's an absolute terror off the edge, and they've got like 3 guys they can rush the passer from the edge too. Dennis Sutton, and then I can't remember the name of the other guy, but they've got 3 guys that can get after it. They've got a good defense overall. And then I just think they're going to be able to out physical them all game too. They've got the horses at running back with Singleton and Katrin Allen, mixing in Tyler Warren off play action pass. It's like, I just think it's going to be a tough recipe for SMU. So I like Penn State to win, not necessarily cover. SMU kind of has that thing when they're down, they just kind of go into all hectic mode. They find ways to make plays and move the ball. So I think SMU might like put up a last second try, but I don't think they'll win, but I think they might end up covering.
SMU is a really good team, man. I wouldn't underestimate them. Them covering seems like a decent bet. I do think that, just Penn State will just wear them down a little bit, but SMU is a good team. I wouldn't even be surprised if they got a lead in this game, but yeah, don't see them.
All right, let's move on to Clemson traveling to Texas, take on the Longhorns. Longhorns are favored by 12 here. I'll go ahead and start. Texas is just the better team, top to bottom. 12 is a lot. I'm not sure if that's a great line to take because Clemson has played some gritty football. They do have one really good explosive playmaker in number 0, Antonio Williams. That kid will definitely be in the league. Give it a year or two. I can't remember exactly what year he is from that, but he's going to play in the league. I think Klubnik will get drafted by a team that is going to want a chance to potentially develop a guy. He's got tools. His problem is he tends to kind of stare down a receiver every now and then, and I think Texas has the athletes on the back end, especially in Jahdae Barron. Big Steeler Fury fan favorite. We thought he might come out last year. We were all screaming for him to be slot corner, but I just think Texas has the better overall team, especially if Clemson cannot run the ball with the Antonio Moffitt, or I think it's Antonio. No, it's Phil Moffitt. Excuse me, Phil Moffitt. And he's been a little dinged up these past few weeks. So if he can't give it a go, I just think things are going to fall in Texas's favor. I don't like them covering, though. So I'll take Clemson to cover, but not win. Will.
Hook 'em horns. I mean, I feel like it's basically Riley Leonard and Cole Klubnik right now, or Cade Klubnik? Cade.
Okay.
They're very similar where they are in their career trajectory. I think Riley Leonard is like already been sort of played out, and Klubnik maybe has a chance to be better than that. I think he's a better passer, but right now they're mostly effective running the football, and I feel like I would much rather see South Carolina in this game than Clemson. Honestly, it's like I feel like Clemson is light years away from talent level where Texas is. So I'd be very surprised if Clemson doesn't get blown out. I think this is the least close game of anything on the weekend.
Okay. Korey?
Yeah. Clemson had to make it because they were the champs, but there were multiple teams I think would have put up a much better fight than Clemson will. I think they are easily the worst team in the field. Even like I think Boise handles them in a head-to-head, and that's like the small, outside of the group of 5 school that's in here.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm not real happy to see Clemson in here. I get why they are. The conference championship thing has to matter, but I'm taking Texas. I think they're going to get.
Yeah, I think that'll be a difference next year.
Miami themselves. That's what Miami did it to themselves.
Yeah, but also if it's Miami in this game, they would have had the highest over/under of all time probably in this game.
Yeah,
like in the 50s.
For sure. But
over/under in the like 100, would be about the right number.
Yeah,
but, can't have everything.
Yeah, Korey, you bring up an interesting thing there, with the conference championships. I think that's one thing that will change from this first iteration of the 12-team playoff to the next. I think what you're going to see is conference champions get in, but not necessarily get, that first round bye, like some of these teams did. But anyway, that's getting off the point here. But next game for the college football playoff is Tennessee is traveling up to the Shoe, Columbus, Ohio, to take on the Buckeyes. Boy, Will, you start off with this one?
I love Tennessee in this game. Like 3 weeks ago, I was like, well, who has the best chance to win the college football playoff? I think maybe I could try to talk myself into Ohio State being the team that was maybe the team with the least warts to it. And then they lost to Michigan in a way that just made me like everything was exposed about that team. And yeah, it's a rivalry game and things just went wrong for them, whatever. But I do feel like I like Will Howard, but it sort of feels like if you push him past a certain point, you get bad Will Howard. Their receivers are good, but they're not necessarily like going to take over the game. Their running backs, our 2 running backs are fantastic, but they're also not. I don't know. They're not winning games running away from people because their talent level. They're sort of not as good as their sum of talent in a way. And I feel like Tennessee has arguably more talent, and they're a little bit more battle tested than Ohio State is. I know they played Oregon, and they beat Indiana, of course. But I kind of like Tennessee going into the Shoe. Like that's going to be a huge upset from the standpoint of the odds and whatever. But I feel like that's I don't know. I like Tennessee's team better. I actually like them for next year's, to have a chance to win a championship next year.
Gotcha, Korey.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is. You know what? I'm not even going to talk about Tennessee. Ryan Day. I have no faith in Ryan Day to pull out a win in this kind of game. I think Tennessee can hang up points if they need, and their two losses. They lost to Georgia, which Georgia's a solid team, and they lost to Arkansas, and that was when I think Taylon Green was kind of feeling himself that game. He had some crazy plays towards the end of that one, which sometimes that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
But like they didn't get blown out. Like they played tight with pretty much all their teams, or they hung up points, and so if you just look at, and I'm not the head coach of Tennessee. What's his name again? It's
Actually, I'm not know who their coach is now. Sorry.
it is Heupel. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, it'll come to me in a second.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest believer in Heupel, but Ryan Day has proven to crumble in these kinds of games, and I'm just not picking him in this. I think he gets fired if they lose this. A point blank. I think this is a win or die game for him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that I can tell you, like being in the Midwest, that's all we're hearing about right now. On podcasts and stuff. And is Ryan Day's job really that safe? It's like, I know they've come out and they've said, the season's not over and everything and stuff, but it's like, good Lord, he just
you got to beat Michigan, and you got to prove to be on the same level as Georgia, Alabama, like the teams that, and if you can't do that at Ohio State, it's not because of their recruiting, it's because of coaching, right? But they should have upped that NIL offer to Cam Ward. They'd have been in a lot better shape.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they definitely would have been. They would have been runaway favorite, probably.
That was a huge, misstep on their part, I think. Big difference. Like I said, like Will Howard, but if you put Cam Ward on that team, they are the clear favorite. So
did I say on the podcast why Ohio State did not land Cam Ward? I thought I did, but I can't remember.
I can't remember if you did or didn't, so go ahead and tell us again.
Ohio State wanted to make Cam Ward go to classes, and
you said that before.
He wasn't making him go to class. That was a major role in it. Ohio State wanted to force him to classes.
Yeah, well, it's nice that they have ethics, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of lean your way. I'm going to kind of lean your guys' way too. I feel like Tennessee's going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be by a blowout by any means. I think it'll be a good back and forth game. If you would have asked me like this question like a month ago, I would have said Ohio State, or a month and a half ago. It feels like it.
Yeah,
we take away like the 3 weeks where we haven't had like college football here, but I don't know what it is, but Ohio State like refuses to scheme with their best players right now. And I'm not exactly sure why it is. Because like in that loss to Michigan, Jeremiah Smith, like, probably the second best wide receiver in college football this year outside of Ryan Williams at Alabama, they just would not throw to him in the Michigan game. And it's just total mystery to me. So it just feels like there's a lot going on there that we don't even see. It feels like there's stuff going on behind the scenes. It's like, why aren't you scheming more targets? He had like 4 targets the entire game, which is just ridiculous. Not to mention they have all the talent you could ever want. Emeka Egbuka, they've got a 5-star freshman wide receiver that's chipping in as the third. They've got talented players. They're just not doing it. So
they lose this game, they're in danger of that guy, transferring too. That's another thing that could happen to them. So
yeah, I mean, you never know. If the season were to end early, you might see a flurry of guys transfer out of there. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I like Tennessee there too. Let's turn our attention very quickly to some NFL games. Funny enough, they're all happening on Saturday of the ones we actually give a shit about. First one's Houston traveling to Kansas City. Kansas City's favored by 3.5. I'll start out with this. I still feel like Kansas City is going to win this game. Mahomes is playing. He's went through a full practice on Thursday. So it just kind of, Kansas City has that black devil magic going on right now. And until they lose it, it's like impossible to pick against them. So I like the Chiefs there. I think that with Mahomes, they always find a way. And that's the end of it. I can't say anything else more. Well,
the Mahomes injury is the only thing keeping me from thinking that they're not only going to win, but that they're really starting to put it together right now.
Hmm.
And their defense is finally figured out like what they can do, like what they're good at, and like putting guys in positions. I feel like that I knew they would come around by the time we rolled to the end of the season in the playoffs. But yeah, I feel like from the Steelers standpoint, not seeing Mahomes on Christmas would be great, but they're still in quite a battle for that first overall
Yeah.
seed where they get the
Yeah.
bye week, which would be huge for them with Mahomes' ankle. So I feel like you're going to see Kansas City go all out this week and next week, and then maybe get a chance to rest people for 2 weeks, which would
Right.
be amazing for them.
Yeah. Korey.
Yeah, I'm with y'all. Something's been off with Houston all year. I think they still, all things considered, look pretty solid, but when you watch them, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like last year. Uh, Add that on top of like you said, the Chiefs just find ways to win right now. It's until they crack, it it's going to be hard to pick against them. I'm going to Chiefs here. I'll take them to cover.
Yeah, you say the Texans didn't look like the Texans last year. I think part of that is just the sophomore slump. Teams have figured out how to play Stroud a little bit. We talk about it all the time when a backup quarterback comes in.
Yep.
Usually the first 2 or 3 weeks he looks like a freaking Greek god, and then the next week he's right back to the puny little guy that gets kicked off Mount Olympus or whatever. So I just think you're kind of getting that effect in Houston this year. Just not it's not like they're playing horrible football. They're just not, electric like they were last year. So
I think that figuring out you see what teams have adjusted now,
yeah.
and now it's the turn of the Texans and CJ Stroud to adjust, and the great ones adjust to that and figure out how to beat it and get better, and then the ones that are they might just end up being a good quarterback for a long time, but not necessarily a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix isn't a top 8 quarterback as he was a couple weeks ago.
No, I think Bo Nix still has a little ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, speaking of guys speaking of like playing to what a guy is good at, Bo Nix on tape in college, especially in Oregon, was just a master at like the red zone and quick decision football, whether it's immediately when the play starts or when it breaks down, making a quick decision. That's the strength of his game. And they've been putting in positions where he's not carrying the team until they get in the red zone, in which case he's being allowed to make decisions and has made good ones. Like I think Nick's is, you know, those teams will adjust to him, and probably we'll see in the playoffs what he really looks like long term. But I've been pretty impressed with what they've done the last few weeks.
Yeah, so let's move on to one more game. Philadelphia at Washington. That feels like the other really big game this week. Washington, or no, Philadelphia favored by 3.5 going into Washington. Will, I'll let you start out.
The Redskins.
Oh, gotta censor it.
Hey, that's coming back. That's coming back, believe it or not.
No, the Commandos. The Commanders feel like a watercolor painting that's been out in the rain for a couple of weeks. Like they were beautiful a little while ago, and man, since they lost to the Steelers, it seems to have really gone downhill. Like, they had that magic victory just before the Steelers game, and it's been all sort of downhill for them since then. And maybe this is just slightly them coming down to earth a little bit, reverting to the mean. But I feel like Philly is sort of hitting on all cylinders right now, and Washington is not. So I'll take Philly.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Philadelphia's just been this unreal tear, and really it's because of their defense. Their defense is just playing so freaking well right now. I mean, if you told me Saquon Barkley wouldn't be playing this game, I'd still take the Eagles. Just overall, the talent collective there is just so much better. And then, I mean, shoot, Washington almost lost last week to the Saints. It's like the Saints are not a good football team. So I'll definitely take Philly here to win and cover. Korey.
I'm going to assume that our pass defense wasn't as bad as it looked our game, and that the Eagles did figure something out, because that was not what they looked like, and we had been pretty solid. So the Eagles could have been playing pretty much anyone this week, and I would have been working with the assumption that they figured out something in the passing game, and I would have picked the Eagles. They're strong on defense. They can run the ball. Their back might win MVP. And then all of a sudden, the most efficient receiver in the NFL is starting to get more targets. They got an elite number 2. Like, this team, if they keep this ball rolling, could be really, really difficult.
No, also Philly's defense is coming off a bye week, so good for them.
Okay.
But they play like 14 minutes or something on defense? Come on.
Yeah. I think the Steelers had 11 snaps on offense in the second half total. That just putrid. And since we're talking about our putrid Steelers, that's our game of the week.
Hey.
5-star matchup. Pittsburgh has to go east to the coast to play Baltimore there. Baltimore is favored by 6.5, which kind of feels like a lot. Korey, I'm going to let you start off.
Oh, okay. I'm picking a win here. No logical thinking other than we've whooped their ass for 9 straight games, pretty much. I'm gonna go. What's two really random numbers? I'm gonna go 25-22. Just 2 numbers that are basically impossible to get to, that result in Steelers win. Somehow it happens.
25-22.
25-22. I'm writing that down.
All right. Well, what are your thoughts?
I think that 6.5 line is just Vegas making all the money back from Steelers fans that they've won over the last 10 years, picking the Steelers against the Ravens, right? I think this is not going to be that close. I think the Ravens are actually substantially a better team than Philly in a way. You know, they're certainly better on offense, and they have, since Dean Pease and their bye week, Baltimore's been playing really solid defense. Right now, I think Baltimore is as talented, doesn't mean they're the best team, as talented as anybody in football right now. And they got those receivers I think can get open, and they have, if not the best running back in the game, pretty close. And they also have Derrick Henry. No, they have. I mean, we can't even joke about Lamar Jackson being a running back anymore. He's killing teams throwing the football right now. So, yeah, I feel like if he can keep his pants up, that the Ravens have, a better team. And I think in general, history favors the split. That is, if you look back over the last 15, 20 years, I think it's most likely outcome of the season series within division. So yeah, I'm gonna say the Ravens win. Let's call it 30-17.
Oof. Okay.
A point closer than last week.
Okay. Yeah, I hate to see, the reason I went with you, Korey, first is we wanted to start it with hope. So I just can't get on board with no George Pickens. If we had George Pickens in this game, I said, yeah, we're going to find a way to win. But without him, I just don't have the confidence that the ball's going to move like it should. And I understand that the Ravens defense is not Philadelphia's defense either. The Ravens defense definitely has their warts. Don't get me wrong, they do. They are not a great unit overall. Just a good collective unit, as what they've kind of been doing this year. But without George Pickens, I just don't see any reason for the Ravens to play anything longer than 20 yards off the ball, because we just don't go to the other guys enough for them to worry about it. They're going to say, you know what, if Calvin Austin beats us over the top for one, we'll let it go. We'll get it back. But outside of that, I just don't have much confidence in us moving the ball. Even with a few matchups that I think they could be good. I think Pat Freiermuth has been very good over the last month, and his ability to kind of get down the seam, ironically, one of the few times the only time we've gone up the seam. Let's not kid ourselves. He's done good there, if he can get on a linebacker, maybe, but it's like Kyle Hamilton is that joker type where he can rush or drop. So it's like, I feel like he could just be that guy that erases Freiermuth. And then it's like, okay, somebody else make a play, which I definitely feel like we're going to lean on our ground game too, because the first time we played the Ravens, we actually able to run the ball. Okay. We weren't averaging some great, like 5 yards a carry, but we were averaging, I think, just below 4 yards a carry. So I think we're going to, especially after losing the time of possession battle so badly this past week, I think we're definitely going to try to do that. And honestly, I wouldn't blame them. If anything we've learned when we've tried to beat an elite quarterback over the last 2 decades, how do you beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady? Don't let them get the ball. You know, I feel like it could be one of those types of games. I just don't feel like we have enough in the tank, considering our other, injuries too. If Dante Jackson wouldn't play, doesn't look like Deshaun Elliott's going to play, which he was a huge part of our pass defense that wasn't there this past week. So I just don't like Pittsburgh to win this. I don't think it's going to be as drastic as 30-17, but I'll go 24-13, where it's like we lose by 2 scores. We do just enough to try to keep it interesting for a while, but then it's like, oh shit, we have to do something.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you can say bad, you can degrade or denigrate Baltimore's defense. They got 3 number 1 picks on defense in the middle of the field who are all outstanding players who kind of erase mistakes that the rest of their defense makes. They got Roquan Smith, who's better than Steelers are, as loaded as an inside linebacker as they've been for a long time. Roquan Smith is better than any of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have, Kyler, what is it? Hamilton, right?
Kyle Hamilton, yeah.
Kyle Hamilton is as good as anybody at that role. That sort of like up and down safety in the box, play nickel, cover a guy man to man on the edge if you need. And they now have Marlon Humphrey playing nickel. It's like you compare that to what the Steelers are running out there on their supposedly, stellar defense. And it's, like it's only a matter of time, I think, before Baltimore's defense comes up bigger than they have been. You can see them evolving into a better defense because, if you're strong in the middle of the defense, I think you have a good shot to stop teams.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. And that's just doesn't feel like Pittsburgh is going to have the momentum coming into this game for it to matter. And, we talk about, us trying to move the ball through the air. We have to stop Baltimore's ground game too. It's still Derrick Henry at the end of the day, a guy that can take any carry and go the distance. So I just think it's too much this week. So unfortunately I like the Ravens. What I say?
You like the Ravens? Oh, I'm just going to edit out that part of the podcast. I like the Ravens. I like the Ravens. I like the Ravens. Just going to say it over again.
Yeah, I was about to say that's just like all the non-context quotes out there. This week needs to get added on.
I really love the Cowboys. Like that kind of thing.
Oh boy, yeah. No, I have a friend that's a Cowboys fan. You don't want to join that cult classic either. So it's just as bad.
By the way, you mentioned Derrick Henry. If I'm not mistaken, Derrick Henry rushed for like 5 yards a carry against the Steelers in the first game, and for some reason they stopped giving it to him. He had 5 yards a carry plus a touchdown in that game, and they got away from it. It's like they so got sucked into the mind games, like you said, that black voodoo magic that Kansas City has. Maybe Corey's onto something that they just figured out a way to make Baltimore forget how to play football or something, because they definitely don't play against the Steelers the way they do against the rest of the league. So,
yeah. Well, we'll see how things go. But thank you all for turning into another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. Me, Smith is smoking on the message boards, joined by Wil Masisak, him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Korey Karbowsky, him as Korey39. Thank you all for tuning in, and hopefully we get some. Honestly, this weekend we're getting a lot of extra football. If you want to watch the college games too, definitely tune in. The action kicks off on Friday night with my Hoosiers. Hopefully the Hoosiers keep the miracle season alive, and hopefully Pittsburgh finds a way to keep the streak going against Baltimore. So here we go, Steelers, and I'm throwing it in there. Here we go, Hoosiers.
Here we go, Steelers and Hoosiers and Corey's flow. That's my 3.